These are some of the ingredients we think of when we think of American Southern cooking: collard greens, grits, and ham.
But in fact, there are many different kinds of Southern cooking. The ingredients might be the same from Memphis to Raleigh, but the dishes aren't.
And today we'll explore Charleston-style low country cuisine. And it's next, y'all, on Epicurious.
Hello, I'm Chef Ishbel Macintosh.
And I'm Jonathan Karsh, and this is Epicurious. On today's show, we'll go to Charleston, South Carolina, and visit a man whose passion is preserving his regional culinary heritage.
We'll also go inside a third-generation mustard mill in Maine to see how real mustard is prepared.
Now, today we're making a low country style Southern meal, and the centerpiece is country ham, sliced thin and served on raised biscuits, just like in Charleston.
We're also making quail with sausage and oyster cream gravy, grits and greens.
That sounds really out there, but it is delicious. Now, the heart of low country is in Charleston, South Carolina, and it spreads throughout the whole region.
And what's cooked is actually defined by the natural abundance of the area, from the sea, the fields, and the woods.
Well, to learn more about low country cuisine in general, and country ham in particular, I traveled south to visit cookbook writer Hoppin' John Taylor. Charleston, South Carolina is easily one of the most scenic cities in the United States. It's known for its beautiful homes and its rich tradition. And at the edge of its historic district is the cooking school/bookstore run by the authority on low country cooking, Hoppin' John Taylor. You've been called the Prince of Perlo. Yeah. You've been called the Truman Capote of cooking. You've been called the Southern answer to Martha Stewart.
I've been called a lot of other things too.
What do you consider yourself?
I consider myself a culinary preservationist, because it's my goal to restore traditional Southern cooking to its rightful place in the firmament.
Oh, look, the country ham. What is country ham exactly, John?
Oh, that's a hard one to explain, actually. That it's a process of curing ham. It's not unlike the cured hams of Europe, but in the South they have to put it down actually in salt for a good while. You can get hams that say they're country hams. They aren't really country hams. They've just been injected with brine and they've been, quote, aged for 90 days. But the hams that I sell and the hams that I eat are old-fashioned, real old, at least a year-old country hams. So you soak it in a pot of water, preferably at least overnight. You want to change the water every 8 hours. You're trying to rehydrate the ham. And then you want to put it in a big pot that's big enough to hold it. I actually have
like
these pots, like this big pot here.
Is this specific for ham?
This is a specific for ham. That's what these are. It'll fit over 2 burners on your eye. It's nice copper pot.
And you can bathe in it when you're done with your ham.
And then you want to poach it in this big pot so that water's just barely bubbling for about 15 to 20 minutes a pound. And then you take it out and let it cool off. You cut all the fat off the outside, except you leave a little bit around the outside, just a little bit of fat around.
It does look like prosciutto.
Yes, a little bit of fat around the outside to break that saltiness again. You want that little bit of fat with that salt, with that sweet and sour. You need all these different textures and flavors. And then you want to slice it. Because it is so salty, you want to slice it as thin as you possibly can. Now, I'm telling you, this is an acquired taste. It is very salty, but you want to put a little mustard on them.
Okay.
And then you want to put a little of my golden pear chutney on here, which has the sweet and sour. It's great with country ham. Taste it. It's marvelous.
I can't wait.
Any recipe that calls for prosciutto, you could use country ham in. And in fact, if you live someplace and you've got a traditional Southern recipe that calls for country ham, and you can't find country ham, use common sense. Use prosciutto if you've got prosciutto in your neighborhood, or if you're in France and use a Bayonne ham, or if you're in England, use a Northumbrian ham. You use what you've got. People are a little too serious about recipes sometimes, I think. You don't make a meal out of ham biscuits. This is wedding food. This is Christmas food. This is, when you get a ham When you get an average size ham, say you get a 15-pound ham. A 15-pound ham, you can have 50 people over at Christmas, but you're also going to have ham on the table. You're also going to have some roast birds. You're going to have, it's not just country ham. It's country ham and something else.
John Taylor is the author of Hoppin' John's Low Country Cookin', which is where many of today's recipes are from. And don't worry if you miss something, since all the recipes and techniques we use are available on our website at food.epicurious.com. Now, you're going to make biscuits-ish for the country ham.
They're almost like raised yeast rolls, but in this form they're little biscuits for hors d'oeuvres that we're going to slice the ham onto. And I'm going to use a fresh yeast for this, melted in buttermilk.
Where do you get fresh yeast?
I get it from an Italian baker in Little Italy. It's not so easy to find, but if you can find it, it does add a lot more flavor than the dried yeast, although it's also more unpredictable. So you've got to get used to working with it.
But it is much, much more flavorful, flavorful than dry.
Yeah.
Trouble with that word.
And now I'm going to sift my dry ingredients into my flour. Salt, cream of tartar, and baking soda.
And cream of tartar is what exactly?
It's a leavening agent.
Okay.
Hoppin' John likes to do everything naturally, so that's the reason he doesn't use some, store-bought thing that's got all the things added together already. And sifting adds air into the biscuits, into the flour, and this nicely mixes all the leavening agents in as well.
Okay, and lard, have mercy-ish. Look at all that lard. What do you do with that?
Well, I'm going to be mixing this in to the flour, and the reason I'm using lard is because it's very flavorful. It comes from pork, so you're using pork and you will be eating ham on the biscuit, so the flavors are very much, of the same family.
Actually, you really can't cheat that. I mean, I know Hoppin' John says you can't use shortening, you've got to use lard.
I would agree with him, and I think lard has a really bad rap. It's actually got half the cholesterol of butter. So
not half the calories.
No, it's about the same, but half the cholesterol, and it does add a tremendous amount of flavor.
Now we're making little appetizer biscuits. Obviously, this isn't for a whole dinner because I was really hungry out there in Charleston after a couple of biscuits. So it's just an hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah, and they're for things like parties and weddings, and the flavor of the ham is very intense, so you only want to eat little bite-sized pieces anyway.
Once that's mixed, it looks like this, right?
Yes, it does. And I'm going to roll that out on my board, just gently. Thank you.
Here you go.
And you smell that yeast coming through. And to roll this into sort of 1/2 inch, cut it out with a 2-inch little cookie cutter.
And you're doing a very good job. You're rolling clockwise. That's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
You remembered. So I'm going to cut these out. Let me just wipe my hands a bit. And put them on an ungraced cookie sheet.
Oh, that's a handy little item, a cookie cutter for biscuits.
Oh, it's imperative that you have one of these. It's a basic thing in your cooking equipment is a little cookie cutter of different sizes. And these are lovely hors d'oeuvre size, and they'll puff up. They sit until they've risen by about 1/4. Once they've risen, they go in a 400-degree oven for 15 minutes, and they get all puffed and golden and yeasty. And
I'm telling you, they are delicious with the country ham. And we have 2 country hams here. One is raw and one is cooked, but it's hard to tell which is which.
This is the raw one. It's been hanging and aging for well over a year. And when you get ready to cook it, you have to desalinate it, which is soaking it in water for about 3 days, just to get that salt out, which preserves it in the first place. And then you cook it, for many hours and cut off all the fat before it seizes up while it's hot. And then you slice it very, very thinly and put it on our delicious golden biscuits.
Oh, I see. Now, it takes days and days to actually make a ham.
I would order it cooked already.
Do what we did, go out and buy your ham. Now, when Epicurious returns, we'll make a classic low-country entree of fried quail with gravy. For more information and the complete recipes for all the wonderful dishes we're making today, go to our website at food.epicurious.com. Welcome back to Epicurious. Now we've got the ham biscuits done, so we're going to make our main course of quail with sausage and oyster cream. Very unusual, Ishbel. Walk me through it.
Trust me, it's delicious. The quail have been sautéing. I just dredged them with flour, unseasoned because the sausage that I add later is spicy and salty. So I've just dredged them, I've sautéed them for about 10 minutes. They're almost done. I like to serve my quail medium rare, but you might want to do them more if you need to.
Does quail taste like little chickens? Because it looks like little chickens.
Poussin is the baby chicken that tastes more like chicken. Quail has a gamier flavor, a bit stronger, a bit darker than Poussin.
So I'm going to put this in the oven just to warm it up?
Yeah, just to keep it warm at 200 degrees. And while I finish off the sauce, the rack's good because that means it doesn't sit in its own juice.
Okay. Low country cooking is pretty amazing. I mean, it uses all of the food indigenous to the area, literally all of it. Sausage, oysters, cream, and quail, all in one pot.
They have no rules, unlike the French and Italians who are very rule-bound. They just try, and it all works. That's the thing. You have your gumbo, where you have all the confluence of different flavors and textures and surf and turf, and it's brilliant. Absolutely imaginative. Here I've been cooking the sausage until it's brown, and I'm going to drain off the fat now by putting it through a sieve.
This is just your standard pork sausage?
Yeah, this is a natural pork sausage that we've made ourselves. And I'm going to do the sauce again in the pan because of all the nice little brown bits and the flavor in the pan. So I'm just going to let that drain a bit. And then into that I'm going to add heavy cream and oyster liquor.
Oyster liquor is what?
That's the fluid that the oyster sits in the bed. You know when you open the oyster and it's got all that fluid in there? That's the liquor.
Is it literally, it's not alcohol, is it?
No. It's just like liquor meaning liquid.
Oh, liquid.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what it's called because it's nice and thick and has a viscous texture. So this is going to reduce slowly, being careful not to boil your cream too hard because it'll scald, but it'll reduce down to this consistency, at which point I shall add the drained sausage back in there. Would you put it in?
That for you.
Mm-hmm. And then at the last minute, if you would like to fetch the quail while I add the oysters, because they only take a minute to cook.
I'm the hunter, you're the gatherer. Fetching the quail.
So these cook very, very gently, literally for 1 minute until the edges start to curl up.
They're nice and warmish.
Great. Now I'm going to show you how to
over here.
See how I truss them up for neatness. Otherwise they'd be all without form and spread across the plate. So I tied it up,
just
tied up with string. So I'm taking the string off the legs, because you don't want to end up eating the string.
I thought you only trussed something that was stuffed, but that's not
No,
true.
something like this, which would be formless. It would just sort of splay and not look very attractive. So it cooks better and it presents better if it's in a nice little neat package like that. And then I'm going to smother it with the gravy.
Smother is a key word in low country cooking, isn't it?
See how I cooked it down until it's of a gravy texture consistency.
Smother that bad boy.
The oysters.
Look at that.
Making sure it gets both oyster and sausage meat on it. Doesn't that look delicious?
That is a classic low country meal, low country recipe. When Epicurious returns, we'll head north and visit an old-fashioned Yankee mustard factory. Stay with us.
For more information and the complete recipes for all the dishes we're making, head to our website at food.epicurious.com.
Welcome back to Epicurious. In keeping with our low country cooking theme, we are now making collard greens. So Southern Belle, Ishbel, Chef Ishbel, Southern Belle, how do you do it?
I'm sauteing some smoked bacon. Smoked because it'll add some wonderful flavor to the collard greens. And I'm removing the bacon now and draining it onto towels.
There's nothing quite like the smell of bacon.
It is really wonderful,
so
isn't
good.
it? I know, it doesn't take much to lend so much flavor to a dish. You see that most cuisines use it at some point or another. And in this pan, I had drained off all but 3 tablespoons of the drippings.
Look at this.
Into which I added the diced, large diced.
It smells so great.
That's the red onion cooking away, so you get that bacon and the sugar coming out of the onion and all melding together.
But that's not actually the bacon, it's the bacon.
It's the bacon drippings.
Drippings.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now I'm going to empty this. Would you help me? I'm going to empty this into a bowl.
Yes.
And if you would scrape it out for me.
the last little bits.
It's good. And obviously you don't want to lose all the flavoring that comes from the caramelized parts from the bacon. So to that, I'm going to add brown sugar, red pepper flakes, cider apple vinegar, half of the bacon, and chicken broth.
It's all goodness. It's just all good things.
And this is going to gently cook the collard greens until they're meltingly soft and they just dissolve in your mouth.
Let's talk collard greens. They're green. They're a little bit like cabbage. They're delicious. What else?
They're like a cross between cabbage and kale, and they've got a nice strong flavor. They're very, very rich in vitamin A. They grow in abundance in the south, and they're just very good for you. And in the north, they saute them, you know, in a much more fancy way. Just quickly cook them and just until they're wilted and they're nice and green. And this is southern. They'll lose their color.
So it's a long, slow cooking time.
They'll turn into this kind of like army khaki green, but the flavor is very, very subtle and sweet and creamy and rich.
It looks like you're using a lot of collard greens, but it reduces down to a very small amount.
Because they're like spinach, they're mostly moisture, so this will come to just a little pile in the bottom. I just want to toss it liberally in the vinegar and the sugar just to really get it going. Then I'm going to put the lid on that and cook it slowly for half an hour before I re-add the onions to that.
Great. Well, we've got our collard greens going, and we've made quail with oyster cream and sausage, and we've got our biscuits going for our ham. But what do you need? What do you need for ham biscuits?
Mustard and chutney.
You do. You need a good mustard. And I went to Ray's Mustard Mill in Eastport, Maine to find mustard made the bygone way, pure and simple. Since the turn of the century, Ray's Mustard Mill has made stone ground mustards, a process most manufacturers abandoned long ago.
To our knowledge, this is the only mustard mill that does mustard this way in the Western Hemisphere.
Most mustard is made by blending mustard powder with vinegar and spices, and then it's cooked. But a lot of the flavor is lost when it's cooked. Ray's cold process mustard retains all of its flavor right into the bottle.
So you start out with your seed and your other ingredients, your vinegar, spices. You batch it all together in one tank, and then it gets all mixed up, and it starts its journey through the black tubes, and it comes to the top of the stone, and the stone is going around, and as the mustard mixture comes down through, it's ground out to the front, and it comes out through the box and in through and onto the next stone. It goes through a series of 4 stones before it's done.
So the process begins at one place and sort of builds on top of itself like a domino effect to the end?
Correct.
It all started when a young John Wesley Ray returned to Eastport after serving in the Spanish-American War. Why did Wes Ray make mustard in Eastport, Maine, of all places?
He was of a seagoing family, and he didn't like going to sea. So when he got back from sea, he got a job with one of the local sardine industries. And while he was there, he thought there has to be an alternative to putting sardines in oil. So he came up with the idea of mustard. He started in a smokehouse in his backyard, and when it seemed to catch on with the different factories, he decided it was time to build a building.
Ray's Mustard Mill looks the same today as it did back when it opened in 1903. But now it's his granddaughter Nancy who runs the business. They have a thriving mail-order business for their newly expanded line of 8 gourmet mustards. It's their continued dedication to Wes Ray's small-volume, old-fashioned stone-grinding process that makes Ray's mustard so popular. Ray's Mill really is an amazing piece of history. And Ish, these are our biscuits, and we're putting Ray's Down East Schooner mustard on our biscuits with the ham.
I'm going to work fast because I'm drooling. Cut a couple, and then try and get my ham as thin as Hoppin' John.
All right, don't drool on the ham.
Try and get
Nicely
that little
done.
bit of fat on it. Okay, that's for your biscuit.
Is there a method
That's
to your
for mine.
madness here, or you just...
I just sort of press down and press out at the same time, and my knife is really sharp. That helps.
No method, in other words.
There's always method to my madness.
Okay. This mustard is so delicious, if I could just impart that to you.
I hope-
tried all 8 of their gourmet mustards.
This was your favorite one?
No, well, Yes, this was one of them, but they have spicy horseradish mustards and beer mustards. And I'll shut up and eat. Dynamite ham.
What a combination. It's fantastic.
Really good. And you know, you could put chutney on this as well. Hop and John puts pear chutney and mustard.
I'd like that little sweet flavor, actually. Let's
And-
see how the collard greens are doing.
Okay.
See, they've melted down. Now
Our collard greens.
I'm going to add the onions, which are lovely and sweet and full of that dripping, so it'll add that sweet level of flavor to this. And then I'm going to cook them for another half an hour.
This may be strong, but I would
It is
say
on.
that's the best smell I've ever smelled in my life.
It is one of the best, isn't it? This feels like
It really
home.
is so good. That's true. It smells like home.
Sorry, I've got to finish my biscuit.
Go ahead. Eat up, chef. You've earned it. When Epicurious returns, we'll show you how our whole low country meal comes together. Stay with us. Miss Ishbel, you done outdid yourself in this fine southern meal.
Why, thank you, Johnny. Do you like my biscuits?
Yes, now I'm going to talk normally now. The biscuits look excellent, and these are our first course, right? Or they could be served outside of this dinner party,
special
right?
occasions, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And especially serve them with a chutney. This is a pear chutney made with, vinegar and spices, and this is a really nice fruity addition to that. And that's what's great about southern food. It's combinations of creamy, like in this dish with the quail and the oysters.
The quail
It's
with the
rich and
oyster and
creamy,
sausage.
But the collard greens, which is cooked with vinegar and sugar, cuts right through that creaminess
And there's
and
bacon
balances
pieces
it.
here.
Yeah, I kept some of the bacon and let it be crisp and just garnished it on the top so we'll get the crisp as well as the bacon that's soft and cooked in.
And a southern meal wouldn't be complete without grits. Good old
And
southern grits.
Do you know what's special about these grits? They're artisanal grits. They have still all the flavor in it because they haven't been over processed, and I cooked them slowly with cream, and so they're just fantastic with the collards and the quail.
And
Nice,
our
refreshing.
dessert, Ishbel, is not quite as rich as our meal. What is it?
It's very fresh. It's different citrus fruits with some cherries and finished off with some coconut, and it's a nice clean end to the meal. And the wine
Yes,
is
from the Epicurious wine
very
cellar, I
good.
got this Gewürztraminer.
Yeah,
it's a German
nice,
wine.
It's nice and sweet, that wine.
Right, that works perfectly with our ham because it's nice and fruity. Ish, why is it so eclectic, this kind of food?
Because there's a confluence of so many different cultures. You've got the African culture and the French Huguenots, the British, the Caribbeans, and the Sephardic Jews. So altogether, you just get this kind of wild, spicy, unpredictable, and passionate cuisine.
Just like us. Remember, all the recipes you see here today and thousands more from Gourmet and Bon Appetit magazines are available on our website at food.epicurious.com. I'm Jonathan Karsh.
And I'm Ishbel Macintosh. Please join us next time.
Y'all come back here. You hear?